News coverage of NATO airstrikes on Yugoslavia from government-controlled Radio Television Serbia in Belgrade. This portion of the news was recorded this afternoon and translated here at C-SPAN in Washington, D.C. It's about 35 minutes.
You're watching Primetime News of Radio Television Serbia. Good evening. Today there was a session of the government of the Republic of Serbia. The session was presided over by Mirko Marjanović. They discussed the measures undertaken against the consequences of the bombardment of civilian facilities committed by NATO. It was stressed that despite the growing condemnation of these attacks by freedom-loving people throughout the world, and despite the growing demands for an end of this aggression, NATO crimes that kill civilian people and destroy the infrastructure and communications of our country continue with every day and get more and more intense. The government says that only the end of the bombardment will enable us to go back to peace. And bring the refugees back to their homes. Our country advocates a peaceful and political solution of the Kosovo problems, but is determined to defend its freedom and independence. The government today discussed and adopted the information on the conclusion of the spring sowing activities. They said that as one of the priority tasks in our current situation, the spring sowing activities have been successfully completed. Thanks to all of the measures that have been undertaken, and especially the exceptional engagement of agricultural workers, they have set a record in terms of sowing activities, actually the record for the past 10 years. All of the areas are actually greater than in 1998. For example, 48% more of soybeans, 28% more of sunflower seeds, 14% more of sugarcane and 3% more of corn has been sown. This successful conclusion, together with all of the measures of the government with regard to agricultural technology, will give us enough agricultural products for export. The President of the government of Serbia, Mirko Marjanović, had a working meeting today with the county presidents of the Republic. It was especially stressed that the expressed unity of our people and their leadership, the patriotism of our people, and the heroism of our armed forces and police forces, all of these These are our guarantee that we shall persevere in the defense of our territorial integrity and sovereignty, that we shall defend our freedom and independence. The full unity of people in the defense of our national interests demands that each individual and organization continue to fulfill their tasks in the defense of the country against this aggression. It was stressed that the solidarity of our people contributes tremendously to alleviate the consequences of the bombardment. It was also noted that all of the state organs as well as companies responsibly carry out their missions in defense of the country. All of the measures undertaken in order to maintain the economic activities and realize the social programs of the government of Serbia are successfully implemented. All of the inspection services are taking up measures against war profiteering speculation. The enemy alliance attacked throughout Serbia. This is what they attacked. For example, Makeš area near Belgrade and Batajnica, densely populated parts of Šabac, the environs of Kraljevo, Novi Pazar, Kragujevac, Jagodina. 4 missiles hit the relay tower of Radio Belgrade near Obrenovac. The attack on Bački Petrovac damaged the power transfer station, leaving the area without electricity and water. In Kosovo, civilian facilities were targeted. In Klina, Kosovska Kamenica, Vučitrn, Lipljan, 2 missiles hit and destroyed the relay station of Radio TV Serbia near Preševo. This is the effect of the NATO alliance attacks in the area of Šabac. 5 missiles hit an area close to civilian facilities, a football stadium, Mačva, that has already been attacked twice. Huge material damage has been inflicted again on civilian facilities in this part of town. From the consequences of the air raid, 6 civilians have been injured, 1 has been kept in hospital. About 3 o'clock today, the area of Bujanovac was also a target of the NATO alliance. 4 strong explosions were heard to the southeast. For example, the village lands of Bogdanovac, Košarevo, Novoselo and Lukarno. The aggressor last night once again attacked Belgrade fiercely. Sometime around 3:15 in the morning, they attacked the building of the Internal Affairs of Serbia. This building has been several times hit and damaged so far. Several explosions could be heard from Batajnica and Rakovica. Also targeted were civilian buildings in Užice and Niš, as well as many places in Kosovo. The electric power authorities of Serbia, despite continued work, have difficulty providing electricity around the country. The aggressor attacked several facilities throughout today and inflicted huge material damage. This is what the electric power authorities of Serbia say about this. From the consequences of the aggressor attack, the Obrenovac relay stations towards Belgrade do not function as of this morning. The criminal alliance hit the area of Krupin with 2 missiles. This also damaged 2 relay stations near Bački Petrovac. This interruption of service has unfortunately caused even greater difficulties in supplying the Republic with electricity. Despite all measures, there has to be special regime of electric energy supply. Particular difficulties are experienced by southwestern and northwestern areas of Belgrade, the neighborhoods of Banovo Brdo, Žarkovo, Vidikovac, and the area around it, then Sremčica, Umka, Barajevo, Novi Beograd, Zemun, Surčin, the settlements Dobajovci, Ugrinovci, Batajnica, and Boljevci. Priority is taken into consideration in terms of electric supply. In order to supply all customers, however, the power company of Belgrade is implementing restrictive measures with power installments of about 3 hours at a time per area. The electric power authorities appeal to all customers to abide by the regulations on rational use of electricity due to the danger of new technical disruptions. The Minister of Health, Leposava Milicevic, briefed foreign and domestic journalists at the Army Press Center on the devastating consequences for medical patients caused by water and electricity cuts. The mindless NATO bombardment of electric power plants of Serbia endangers daily, as Dr. Milicevic said, 9,500 intensive care patients, 300 babies, 2,000 kidney patients on dialysis, 400 cancer patients, 1,000 surgical patients, and all other persons in need. From the beginning of the war against our country, NATO has dropped 10,000 bombs. 115 health institutions are damaged or destroyed. All of this is a crime without precedent. It is interesting that this exceptionally well-attended press conference concluded without a single question from a journalist. After everything that has been said, what can you ask? We have informed you earlier that members of our Navy interrupted on Skadar Lake a smuggling ship with about 80 kilograms of marijuana intended for the markets of Western Europe. The proceeds would have been used to finance the terrorists in Kosovo and Albania. Our TV crew was there on the site, and this is the exclusive report we have. Within the framework of their routine surveys, members of our Navy intercepted on Skadar Lake a smuggling boat where our citizens were trying to smuggle drugs from Albania into Kosovo. They found about 80 kilograms of marijuana intended for resale and then financing arms for KLA. In his review of the event, the commander of the combat boat of our border units, Lieutenant Predrag Đurović, said that the smugglers tried to flee our patrol with the motorboat. There was exchange of fire. One smuggler was wounded. We captured on Skadar Lake 2 illegal people who were trying to cross our borders. These people were captured. They're no longer free, and during that moment we also captured a certain quantity of drugs, currency, and mobile phone. These persons were in the boat that you can see behind us, and now you see 2 soldiers in it who were part of the patrol that was securing the state border. On the basis of the first indicators and investigation, these drugs were intended to be sold in Western Europe. The full investigation is underway. The General Director of the UN for Science and Culture, Federico Mayor, has officially appealed for an end of the bombardment of Yugoslavia and passing of a resolution regarding the contested issues within the UN. Force can only increase suffering, helps nothing, states the announcement of the UNESCO. In Moscow, there are further diplomatic activities towards the political regulation of the crisis in Kosovo, meetings between Russian and American and Russian and India officials. Viktor Chernomyrdin stressed that Russia will insist even further end of the bombardment on Yugoslavia. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Igor Ivanov, repeated today during his meeting with the Foreign Minister of India, Jaswanta Singh, the position of Russia that the solution of the crisis in Kosovo is possible only by political means, that it is necessary with joint engagement to offer proposals that could stop the tragedy in Yugoslavia. He stressed that India, a country that shares many of the same ideas, including the view on Kosovo with Russia, is deserving to be permanent member of the UN Security Council. It is expected that Ivanov should discuss tonight the political means of resolution of the crisis with the Deputy Secretary of State of the US, Thrope Talbot, before tomorrow's three-way meeting of Chernomyrdin, Ahtisaari, and Talbot. Ivanov stated that there are significant differences between Russia and the US regarding the approach to the political resolution of the Kosovo crisis, that the US doesn't show enough political will. to really end this conflict as soon as possible and stop the bombardment, that the daily attacks on the civilian targets have led to problems in terms of the functioning of the public services in larger cities. Concrete measures will have to be discussed further in Stockholm between Ivanov and the UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. The special envoy of the Russian president for Yugoslavia, Chernomyrdin, said that Russia will express its opinions much more strongly and its demands as well regarding the end of the bombardment. However, Chernomyrdin did not precise as to whether we're talking about verbal appeals to the West or perhaps some concrete measures. However, he also denied some rumors about his alleged disagreements with Igor Ivanov with regard to Kosovo. Chernomyrdin claims that he is continually in touch with the foreign minister of Russia and that with respect to the Kosovo conflict, they're simply implementing the line and the position adopted by President Yeltsin. All Indian media report on the statements of the foreign minister Jashwata Singh after the meeting with Chernomyrdin that Kosovo can be resolved only by political means. India and Russia demand an immediate halt in the bombing campaign because, as it was said in Russia, that's the prerequisite for a diplomatic solution and return of the role of the UN. The president of the Foreign Affairs Ministry of China repeated that NATO has to end its actions against Yugoslavia. Beijing said that Yugoslavia as a sovereign state cannot be imposed upon any solutions, but solutions have to be brought about in conclusion, in connection with Yugoslavia. In Beijing, there was a meeting between the commander of the Chinese army, Fu Chuanyou, and the commander of the Russian Navy, Vladimir Koradov. They said that they have to continue their actions in order to stop the NATO bombardment. China rejected again the U.S. allegations about its theft of American nuclear secrets. Beijing notes that this campaign regarding the spying affair in the U.S., which is motivated primarily by domestic politics and the need for continued confrontations with China, will damage further the cool relations between U.S. and China after the bombing of the Chinese embassy in Belgrade. The Athenian daily Athenaiki reports that China supports fully the joint Greek-Czech initiative for the peace in the Balkans. The initiative was presented in Beijing by the Foreign Affairs Minister of Greece, Yorgos Papandreou. Chinese officials said that they give full support to the peaceful resolution of the Kosovo crisis. This means that the UN, as the only responsible international organization authorized to take care of such problems, should continue to participate